Thank you. I want to welcome everyone to our June 26th meeting. Still a little bit of delay in that mic there. We'll see. I guess it, all right. Sorry. First item on our agenda is items from council. Please, and also, I'm sorry, please note council's in full attendance. Council, you have anything in particular? Yes, ma'am.
When you're looking at the food truck laws and rules and stuff, did y'all consider anything with the noise? For, mainly the generators or anything like that?
With the original food truck, I don't remember if they did. I'm going to have, John, do you remember if we did? I don't think we did.
Because I've had some complaints,
Okay,
okay, and they asked if we would look at something to maybe minimize that noise, especially when they're in neighborhoods. Or,
okay,
main thoroughfares that are surrounded by neighborhoods,
okay.
okay? So
Yes.
I don't know how we could incorporate that, but maybe we could take a look at that.
Well, and I think last week I might have mentioned it. If I didn't, I meant to do, this temporary fix on the temporary, but ordinance has been in place now, not quite a year, but close to a year. We need to relook at the whole ordinance to see
Okay.
what's working and not, but I'll add that to when we're
Please.
looking at it.
I appreciate
Yes,
it.
ma'am.
Anything else? Okay, if not, we'll move into citizens' communication. If anyone would like to come forward and speak about anything at all, now would be the time. Okay. All right, we'll close citizens' communication and move into the rest of our agenda. We just have the two ordinances that do not have public hearings, and then we'll start on our work session.
Item C1 is an ordinance amending Section 14-59 related to mobile food vendors and units to clarify the requirements for temporary mobile food vendor permits, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for publication, codification, and savings, and declaring an effective date.
Second.
Okay, motion seconded. Is there any questions or discussion? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, ayes have it. C2.
C2 is an ordinance amending Chapter 24 fees to address the city secretary administered fees for itinerant vendor permits and the fees associated with tow truck permits, repealing all conflicting ordinances, providing for publication, codification, and savings, and declaring an effective date.
Council?
So moved.
I have motion and second. Are there any questions or discussions? This is not the first time we've seen it. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay, ayes have it, that passes. So no consent agenda, and we'll move straight into our work session. Ms. Charmel Garrett will start us off.
I will. I just have a few brief comments before we start with our presenters. Your notebook has the presentations pretty much in order. I made a slight change this morning, but Fire Department will come after Daryl and Environmental, but that's the only change in the order there. But we get ready for this time. We start in January working on it, so it just seems like we've been working on it for several months, and you're getting it for a couple of months and not long. So it's how it goes every year. But tonight and tomorrow night, the purpose is for us to get guidance from you if you don't like a direction that we're presenting to you. It's a good opportunity for us to get that guidance. And then that way, when we bring the budget back in August, we've incorporated those changes that you wished us to make. We not, on the votes for the budget, the 3 votes, you can make any changes you want to, but it's always kind of nice if we understand that, yes, we're meeting your expectations or we're not from the formatting of the budget and the items we have in there. Gilbert's going to present tomorrow night. He'll get into detail about the revenue sources, our expenses, the tax rate based on what information we have today. The departments that are presenting based on a budget that we formulated that is based on the effective tax rate that we think it is today. Now, we don't get those final numbers from the appraisal district till the end of July. So we're basing that on what we have, data that Gilbert gets from John over there, Halliburton, and estimates on new growth that he's done, looking at permits and what's going on. So At this point, it's a pretty good estimate, but it could change. But the budget's put together based on that effective tax rate. I don't have to tell you, we've got some challenges with our revenue sources. Sales tax has been down for the last couple of years. The property tax values are relatively, they're little growth, but not much. Some would say it's almost flat, but there is a little growth in that. So we are seeing decreases in our major revenue sources. For the past this year that we're in right now, we did a decrease of almost $1 million in our expenses. You'll see that, another $1 million that Gilbert will talk about tomorrow night. So that's our challenge, almost $2 million in the decrease in our revenues, which we have to match those expenses to that revenue. And we've done that, and we'll present a balanced budget to you. I'm pleased to say we are maintaining our reserve at 25%. That's a goal. When Gilbert and I start talking about the budget, that's one of the things I think is very important. You all know sales tax is volatile. You've seen it in the last couple of years, so that's really the importance of having that reserve so we can fall back on that if we have some catastrophic incident that happens. I like to remind everybody, we're a local government that focuses on core services. That the focus is public safety and streets and utilities. And then we look at our quality of life, which is library and parks. But we're not a local government that has gotten into a lot of different businesses that strays away from that core function of what the purpose of a local government. So, and that's been that way for years and years, but it continues to be that way. The budgets, we're not, you won't necessarily see a cut in service, but what you will see is we're postponing and deferring things. You saw it when we did the CIP earlier. We're deferring projects. That's continuing to do. We're doing that also in the department. So I've asked the departments to talk about some of those challenges of what's happening, what's getting deferred, what's getting postponed, so you understand that. Our largest cost in the budget is our personnel expense. It's around 67% for the general fund. So through the years, we've looked at ways to work smarter. We've used technology. We're continually looking at how to improve our processes. That's an ongoing business where we can. But when you look at the total personnel numbers, and Cheryl will talk about that in a little bit, what I wanted to talk about was from 2012 to we had 611 personnel. This year, we're proposing 617 personnel. That's an increase of only 6 people. However, during that time period, we added 12 firemen and 6 police officers. So we've increased those 2 departments by almost 18 positions, but yet the net increase is only 6. So hopefully the public will understand we're looking at trying to have savings in our personnel, especially since that's such a large percentage of the budget. So I'm going to commend the department heads. I know they do a great job tonight and tomorrow, but they understand what it takes to put a budget together. They also understand the revenue shortfalls that we've had, and they're working hard to improve the processes and make sure we're meeting the needs of the community. So they do an excellent job. Gilbert, of course, carries a heavy load. He and his staff, I see Laura and Billy out there and Andrew, of putting this document together. So when you get that huge document in August 1, I wish it was April, huh? We'd be done. August 1. So, Gilbert does a great job. But so with that said, Cheryl, I'm going to let you start. And
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. So I am the first in a series of budget presentations, and my presentation gears more toward our personnel, and then I will be discussing some of our proposals on our pay program this year as well. So full-time personnel numbers, this sort of gives you an idea of where we've been and what we're proposing for fiscal year 18. It gives you sort of a 3-year fiscal view, fiscal year 16, 17, and 18. We broke it up into those fire, police, general fund departments, and then all other funds. So you can see there's no movement over the last few years in fire and police. General fund, we actually have a decrease of 2 positions from last year. All other funds, we actually have a decrease as well. So we're going from 621 full-time budgeted positions currently to 617 in fiscal year 18. We are not recommending adding any positions for fiscal year 18. And we do have 4 positions that we've been able to review as a result of a vacancy and then eliminate altogether going into fiscal year 18, which is representative of those numbers. I like to show this chart too, year after year, to just give you an idea of what we have as far as our vacant positions. We've worked hard since that fiscal year 14 to sort of maintain our vacancies throughout the city. So you've got, again, a historical view and then a year-to-date number there for our current fiscal year. So fiscal year 14, we had an average 49 vacancies. We dropped that down to 39. We had a good year in fiscal year 16. We got as low as 23. We've creeped back up a little bit this year to 32, but hopefully we can maintain that throughout the rest of this fiscal year. So currently, as of last Monday, here's our current vacancies to give you an idea where those fall out. We currently have 31 vacancies that we're working off of. And we update these on a weekly basis. For the purpose of this presentation, though, I went back to 6/19. Environmental services, we actually have 0 as of 6/19. Parks and Rec, we had 2. Police, we have 11 vacancies. Some of those are 911 telecommunication operators. We have 7 licensed police officer vacancies as of that date. Fire, we have 3 openings. Public Works, we have 11. And then all other departments lumped together, we have 4 of those, and that makes up the total of 31 vacant positions. So that is the personnel component of my presentation. Any questions on that? I'd be glad to answer. Otherwise, I'll roll into the compensation and give you an overview of sort of what we're proposing for our pay program. So based upon our projected revenues, we are recommending funding for the following. We are recommending 1,000 one-time, what we're calling a stipend pay for employees that are not included in the police and fire step pay program. So that would be a one-time stipend for all other employees other than those that are identified in the STEP plan. Now, those positions in the STEP plan are certified, certain certified positions for police and fire. It's not everybody in police and everybody in fire. It's primarily those that are in certain positions, certain certified positions. But all others in those departments that are in the STEP plan would receive the one-time 1,000 stipend. We are recommending that either the stipend or the step increase be given to the employee on their anniversary date versus at the beginning of the fiscal year. And then also what I included was just some pay history so you could get an idea of what we provided in the years past. Recognizing last year we did not recommend a pay program given the conditions of the market, the revenues and such. Fiscal year 16, we had a 3% across the board and a 3% average step for certified PD and fire personnel. But we also were able to do some market adjustments for fire and PD that equated to an average 2.5% for certain positions. And then fiscal year 15, we did do the 3% pay for performance and a 3% average step for those that were in the STEP plan. So here's how that funding looks over the last fiscal years. Fiscal year 16, you can see it totaled roughly about 1.3. You've got the general fund amount as well as the fire step, police step, and I included those market adjustments in there as dollar figures as well. And then just the general fund total. As we recognize, we did not have a pay program last year for city departments. For fiscal year 18, the funding is roughly about $866,000. For the pay program that we're recommending. The one-time stipend of 1,000 and then those for the STEP plan, police and fire certified positions. To conclude, and that'll probably be the shortest presentation you have so far, is just, our recommendations again reflect what we're facing in the current economy for fiscal year 18. I know that it was a goal in particular of the city managers to look at a pay program for employees. And so that was laid out for us and we worked hard to bring that to you here tonight. Our goal continues to be that employer of choice, even in tough economic times. We can offer that stability of workforce. We have positions that have been with us for, 20, 30 years, employees that have been with us that long. As well as we do value our employees and the service that they provide to our community. So we're a work family, I tell people, and that doesn't go unnoticed. We have respect in the work environment, and, you know, we like to make sure that our new employees as well as our existing employees know that we enhance livability of everything that we do in our community, and we want to maintain that. So that's why we say we want to continue to be that employer of choice, and even in tough economic times, we believe we can do that. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a comment first and then a question, besides thank you. I do want to comment that in addition to our pay, we do offer benefits to our full-time employees, and there are a lot of people that work that do not have the benefit of benefits, and that isn't something that we should discount with our employees.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mhm.
But I have a question. Now, you've talked about a one-time stipend, and I follow that, but in some of the other presentations, it looked like there was, in addition to the stipend, there were some entries for what looked like raises. And I know it's not your presentation, so I was going to ask later on, but are you,
Career ladder is one of them.
Yeah, and some of those, it might not be the stipend, but if they are promoted within their position, if they receive certain certifications and they're moving up a career, then those are also identified and budgeted for within
I
the
see.
department. So I didn't include it as an overall because it's sort of detailed to specific departments that have that program. Yes, ma'am.
thank you. That may have cleared it up. I may not have to ask it later.
Okay, that's fine.
The health fund.
Thank you.
Just so I can mention that, you know, we continually work on the health fund up until the last possible minute. So we'll present that to you in August after,
That's
we're
great.
still crunching numbers on the health fund.
That's right. Every little day that passes helps us, so
does on the health fund.
we get that in. Thank you for mentioning that, Charmaine.
Sure.
Well, if no other questions, then that concludes my presentation. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you, Cheryl. She did say it was a priority of the city manager on the pay program, but I also know it's a priority for every one of you sitting up here, because I heard that from all of you about wanting to make sure we could do a pay program. That recurring revenue just doesn't lend itself to doing additional recurring pay on the pay, but the stipend hopefully will be appreciated. Hey, Daryl.
Hello. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we're going to talk about the environmental services budget. What we provide currently is garbage collection, recycling, yard waste, tree limb, large item, household hazardous waste pickup, air quality research and education, and we cover other environmental issues. We do some work with endangered species and the environmental flows, the water that comes down the Guadalupe River. And then new this year, and Gilbert will be explaining tomorrow as he closes things up, is the weedy lot and mowing and building demolition that has been moved over to the Environmental Fund. So looking at the tonnages, we do this every year because it's kind of a good snapshot to see kind of where we are garbage-wise, where we are recycling. Our household garbage this year actually increased. We think some of that, if you look at the curbside recycling, is down. It's because of them moving that glass and some of those plastic items from that recycling over to the trash pickup not being part of our program any longer. Tree limbs is up, but we had a wet year last year. We've got a wet year thus far this year. You're going to see those things with a lot of people trimming trees. They stay green longer. We end up, picking them up well into the winter and earlier in the spring. Household hazardous waste, 50 tons of household hazardous waste did not go to our landfill. Was taken out of town by At Your Door service. That includes everything from paint to herbicides, pesticides, TVs, computers. Those are the biggest things the biggest volume is those TVs, computers, batteries, those types of things that go out. And then we have an interesting number, since you see that household garbage is up. Our total resident count, though, is down. And so we're still picking up a large volume of trash, even though we've got a few less customers. So looking at our budget for 17 to 18, our personnel costs are going to be down about $7,700. Our maintenance and operations is going to be up, and I'll explain that when I get to the next slide. Capital is going to be down about $1,700. Our total recurring expenses is down about $1,000. One-time expenses is up, and on the next slide, we'll kind of explain these things. And then our total proposed budget's up about $326,000. So here's where those numbers play out. Our personnel, it's mostly baseline adjustments. So that's $7,800 that it comes down. Maintenance and operation, we've got a decrease in fuel. We're expecting. We're also expecting a decrease in tipping fees. But we added $120,000 for mowing and demo. And like I said, Gilbert will be kind of explaining the reasoning behind that tomorrow evening. So actually, our net reoccurring expenses is down about $1,000. Does anybody kind of have any questions? We're following me? So looking forward to next year's budget, we've got landfill improvement project. You remember we talked in May of 2015 about starting looking at what we need to do with our landfill going forward. We know we've got kind of a fairly definite date of 2032 when we start to worry about space. And so we're going to keep that project moving. So we've got 865 in now. We're asking for 550 next year. So we're looking at a savings of about 315,000. Carts. I came to you a couple years ago and said we wanted to increase the budget for carts. We did. But the good news is they're lasting a lot longer than what we thought they would. So I'm not having to replace them at the rate that I thought I was going to, which is good. It's good because our drivers aren't tearing them up. It's good because our customers aren't lighting them on fire by accidentally putting ashes and stuff like that in there. So we're getting a lot longer out of our carts than what we originally thought we would when we started this program. We're going to purchase 2 automated trucks next year. They're both replacements, not new vehicles, not additionals. The price on those trucks has gone up. They're $309,000 a piece. We've got GPS equipment. We use those GPSs pretty much on a daily basis. Our overtime has come way down, which has allowed us to save a lot of money in the 3-4 years we've been using those. We replace them as we need them. We may buy 2, we may buy 1, we may not have to buy any, but we want to have the money in there for that availability.
Remind
ma'am.
everybody, when you say the overtime's down, it's because of your routes and how you're managing your routes. So would you mind,
Yes,
Counselor, of
ma'am.
that?
We really look at productivity. The routing system, we went through a reroute in April of last year. So we moved things around. We made them more efficient. That was part of that software that we purchased along with the GPS system. We use the GPS to track that, but then we also use reporting just off of their daily route sheets. We track how many homes they pick up, how fast they go, where they're going. If they get out of whack, we're able to adjust them with the software that we have. And we bring that up weekly with the drivers. Productivity is very important. We went to this system to be more productive, and so that's the key to the whole system, is to be more productive. If you're not watching that, then you're really not gaining anything by having the automated system. We're looking at bidding out our compost facility next year, or the year after, actually. And so we've got money in there to kind of help us put together an RFP to get that bid out and then evaluate those bids when they come in. And then, of course, we have the stipend plan for $28,839, and that covers all of the environmental employees.
Daryl?
Yes.
The composting, you mean Gardenville?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And go back to that landfill improvement, the 315 decrease. What is that again?
What the 865 we have in there currently is to try and purchase property. The
Okay.
decrease down to 550 is where we start the actual permitting process.
Okay.
Maybe that answered him, but now you lost me. The decrease is where you start the actual permitting process. What do you mean?
So once if we can obtain this property, then what will happen is in order to enlarge our landfill, we have to go to the state and request a permit. And there's a process, it's a multi-year process you go through to get that done.
And so you're just delaying that.
Yes, ma'am. And we've
The
got
saving-
this.
Daryl, I don't mean to
Okay.
walk on top of you, but I am. The savings there, the 315 is just, the 865 was, and we had some land purchase cost in there. We think the permitting process is gonna run about 550.
Yes, ma'am.
That's,
And that's,
Okay.
that's the,
Yes.
yeah, so it's just, we're saving, but just the difference, but the 550 is for permitting.
and there's a lot of things that go into the permitting. It's not just the actual permit process. We've got to do some surveys and different things as we go through. Yes, sir?
It's not a new permit, it's just an amending of an old existing
Correct.
permit.
Correct. It's
That should save us considerable amount of money, should it not?
I'm sorry?
That should save us a considerable amount of money over a brand-new facility. or
Yes, sir.
Brand-new permit.
Yes, sir.
By amending the old permit, it's a lot less work.
Yes, sir.
Well, yeah, I don't mean
It's
to,
still a lot of work.
Yeah.
well,
And
still a lot
it's
of
a
money,
multi-year
yes.
process. It's not going to happen overnight.
but for this 1 year, that's a lot of money. I mean, you've got to get engineering, environmental studies.
Correct.
Wow. I didn't know it was that much. It's a little shocking, but anyway.
So here's the good news. No rate increases. I know Ms. Solis always asks that question every year.
I see that. I read that already.
I saw you digging through your book. I thought maybe you went straight there.
She was doing her happy dance over there.
So, all of our accounts, if y'all remember back in 2008, 2009, we separated all our accounts out in order to make them stand on their own. I can stand here today with the help of Gilbert and Andrew and his folks and tell you all of our accounts are standing on their own. I do not need to raise the rates in order to keep these programs going. A lot of that goes back to that productivity. It goes back to the guys getting out there, getting the job done and getting off the street. So when Charmel talked about, some of the things that may suffer here and there due to shortage of general fund money and things like that, the one thing that I'm over that really is controlled by general fund is fleet. In 2013, when we signed this fleet contract, we had 262 vehicles as part of that contract, and we had 52 out-of-life cycle vehicles. Life cycle on a vehicle depends on the vehicle. Some it's 5 years, 100,000 miles, some it's longer than that. Garbage truck, it's 7 years. And so once they get out of life cycle, they go off the books. In other words, we're paying for all repairs. It's not covered by the contract. In 2017, we had 275 vehicles on contract, 69 that were off contract. And going into 2018, we have 272 vehicles that are going to be part of that contract. And now we're up to 79 that are full city expense. If they break down, it's our dime. They're not covered in any way, shape, or form by the contract. And so as we move forward, that's just something to keep in mind, because we're paying $1.1 million for this contract, but we're pulling vehicles off of it and that are becoming our cost now, not the cost of the contract. So when you look at vehicle capital, that is just vehicle capital for general fund vehicles. I've pulled out all enterprise fund vehicles. So in 2013, we spent $1.26 million. In 2017, $510,000. And in 2018, our estimated cost going forward is $402,800. Now, looking back over the last 10 years, our average, not counting last year, was $1.2 million a year. Now, we're in that downturn and everything like that, but it was important for us just to bring this to your attention as we go forward.
Daryl,
Yes, sir.
have the retirement criteria, has it changed in recent time? Longevity of vehicles has changed in recent time, in the last 20 years.
We have adjusted garbage trucks, and we've adjusted some of the vehicles as we go through the system. Yes, sir.
Well, if it's mileage 100,000 is very low this day and age, not true 20 years ago, perhaps.
Most of those are police cars, and so they're run 24/7. When they get to 100,000 miles, they pretty much need to be replaced. Some of the pickup trucks and stuff don't get there due to miles. They get there with age way before they get there with miles.
And we look at both, and each year, Daryl gives us a spreadsheet that shows what the cost to maintain that vehicle is running, those are outside. And that's how we decide, no, we're not gonna replace it, no, we will. So just because it hits that out-of-life cycle is not an automatic replacement
Correct.
for us. We look at those. But
This year,
We did defer this year.
yes, this year, we are only replacing 15 vehicles in the general fund. So out of 351 total vehicles, we're replacing 15 in the general fund.
And where's the maintenance cost accounted for in the budget?
In each one's budget.
Pardon me?
It's split up between all of their budgets. So they each have a budget for that, plus then the main part of the contract is covered in the fleet budget. But they each have a budget for repairs. So PD's got one, fire, solid waste. Everyone's got their own repair budget. And that leads me to future items. We'll continue to monitor the carts and replace them as needed. We'll purchase and replace Knuckle Boom next year. We're going to close 28.2 acres of landfill in 2025. And then we will continue with our landfill improvement project and try and make sure that we've got room for trash past 2032. Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks. So Tanner's up next.
Good evening. Always a pleasure to be here and have the opportunity to talk a little bit about the fire department, things that we have going on. In particular tonight, just talking about our budget. I want to thank my two assistant chiefs for being here tonight, but for their role in this, in our development of our budget. They do a fantastic job in managing their section of the budget. So, and then I also want to echo what Ms. Johnny talked about, and that we're really blessed to have outstanding employees. All this doesn't matter if we don't have good people that are out there serving us each and every day. So, and the fire department is no different. We have some really outstanding folks, and we're really blessed to have that. So with that, I'll get started and talk a little bit through some of the things that we do in our department. Ms. Johnny talked about our personnel being at 130. That is the kind of the breakdown of how our organization is developed. We have 6 in the fire chief's office, 2 in the training division, 5 in our fire marshal's division, and then 117 that are out there riding in the ambulances and the fire trucks, the folks that you see each and every day. You've tried to kind of keep a running 5-year statistical analysis of kind of where we're at and what we're doing, showing any kind of upward trends. You look going back to 2012 up through last year at 2016. You can see that we have a continual increase year over year. It's anywhere from 3 to 5%. In what we do. The biggest change that we're seeing is going to continue to be on the EMS side. That number continues to grow up each and every year. 2016, that's the first time we topped 10,000, and we're not quite through this month, and we're on pace to exceed that again next year. So I think we'll probably be, right now we're on pace to be about 10.5, maybe 10.6 for next year. Or for this 2017. Kind of a breakdown of our budget. Just like has been previously discussed, the biggest cost is our personnel at almost $10.7 million. And then also the maintenance and operation of our facilities, our 6 fire stations and an admin building. as well as our capital expenses that typically will go up or down depending on what is being purchased in any particular given year, what is due to be replaced as far as apparatus or ambulance. Our budget as proposed is just a tad over $13 million, which is 1.32% more than what we brought last year, what we were given last year. There's a lot of numbers there, but at the end of the day, we're $91,000 more, and that includes the pay plan. It also includes a couple of vehicles that I'll show on a different slide. So we're down in some areas in supplies. Those are areas that we had a little bit more control over, and we tried to tighten up a little bit as much as we could. And some of our utilities are down a little bit. Most everything went up just a tad bit, but you know, that was a real focus, is to try to be as lean as we possibly could. Just recognizing that we're in a little bit of a depressed economy, and we're trying to do as much as we can with the resources that we have. Some of the things that did increase is, you know, the benefits of our employees, and I think we typically are going to see that as those things go up from year to year. Our overall maintenance cost is down a tad, and then our capital improvement plan is up a little bit. One of our biggest costs is our fire station number 1. It needs a new roof, and it leaks really badly and has for quite some time. And our preliminary estimate is $165,000 to replace that roof. So it's been in the pipe for a couple years, and we got to do something with it. So that unfortunately is just a really huge cost that's helping drive, you know, overall cost up. You take that out of our budget, and we're down in total budget requests. So. As we dive into some of the more specialized things that we typically do, you can kind of see some of the things that we highlighted on the hazmat equipment, our technology. The MDTs are the computers that are in the apparatus and the ambulances. This will be the second phase of that will complete that purchase. The first round of those MDTs that we were able to get through a grant, so the city we didn't even have to pay for those, so that was nice. And the fire marshal's equipment, some of the stuff that they use on inspections on a daily basis are being replaced because they're a little bit outdated. Again, I talked a little bit about the station maintenance. We're replacing 2 vehicles for the fire marshal's division that are actually have been put off for a year or two, so they're definitely needed. One thing that you don't see on there is a fire apparatus. And we have a plan at this point to buy a fire truck, but our plan is to use some grant money that we received. We will be receiving probably as far as a notification in August, and that's the ambulance supplemental payment program that we got into last year. And if y'all remember, we talked briefly about it last year, and we were only able to collect 1 month because of when we got in, and this year we'll be able to receive an entire year. Our collection last year, and Gilbert, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was about $85,000. We received about half of that for 1 month. So we're kind of just projecting that out, that we look like we'll be around $450 or so. And I think the plan at this point is still to utilize that money towards the purchase of a fire apparatus so that it doesn't hit our general fund budget. Some of the enhanced equipment, surface decontamination a device, and that's something that we can put into our ambulances and our stations and turn on, and it will help kill all the germs and bacteria. We clean those ambulances every morning and after every use as much as we can, but this will really enhance our ability to keep those clean and get all the little hidden things that fall down through the cracks. We're also a Stryker power load system, and that's that center photo. That is a device that really will assist us in just running a cot up to the back of the ambulance, and it actually picks up and pulls it in to the cot. That will certainly help our folks in our workers' comp issues. with some back injuries that we've experienced. So, and then also a bariatric lifting system. Again, we get into some pretty precarious positions at times, and we don't often have the ability to really develop some good lifting techniques because of where we're at. And so having some devices that will assist us with that will really be a nice feature for our folks. On the fire side, some of the things that we'll be looking at that are in our budget. And again, I talked a little bit about the mobile data terminals, thermal imaging camera. Most of this equipment that you're seeing is part of a rolling 5-year asset replacement program that we produce to the city manager and finance director so that they have an idea of the things that we're going to need as we go forward. And so that helps us plan for these budgets very well. Kind of what can we expect going forward? It's not in this presentation because this is a budget presentation, but we continue to explore ways to hold ourselves accountable. The performance of our organization is very important to us. We were recognized recently with the Gold Plus Award, the highest recognition for cardiac care. And so we're very proud of those third-party validations and looking out and trying to find ways that we can continue to improve the service that we deliver to our community. We will monitor as we're looking at our organizational measurements, improvements, and services that we offer. On the fire, EMS, and the fire marshal side is again trying to be lean where we can, but yet be highly accountable and continue to challenge our folks to deliver the very best service that we possibly can. That's all I have, unless you guys have some questions.
Thank you.
Okay.
As Dana's getting up, one of the things you'll notice, and I don't think I said anything earlier, was we continue to see an increase in calls for service or utilization of our programs. You'll also notice that when Dana comes up. So that's part, as we're decreasing that budget, just keep in mind those service calls and the utilization of our programs that continue to increase.
But real quick, before Dana starts on the fire department, I'm sorry, Chief, don't get up. Sharmell can answer probably. Are you going to give a presentation to the county? Similar presentation at all, or? I know you were going over there occasionally and.
For our actual budget, I typically do not do that. What I typically do is at the end of the year is I will do a year-end report for that, just on our responses out in the county.
Okay.
And then I make that available to all the commissioners and the county judge.
And he did that again this year, probably March, April, Tanner?
Yep.
Offered.
And I offered to meet with each one of them individually or however they want to do it, just so they have the opportunity to ask questions and for us to explain the things that we do as well. Because all these things that we talk about apply to them as well.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, on the responses that we have that are the fire and EMS, does that include the county or is that just us?
It's everything, yes.
That's everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, council. This evening, I wanted to give you a short overview of activity and then move on into our budget for request for fiscal year 2017-2018. So just an overview of the library where we are at currently. We are open 61 hours per week. We have 27 full-time employees, 5 part-time employees, and about 4,700 people visit us per week. So we are a high-use building with lots of foot traffic. And as you can see from the graph on this slide, we've seen an 11% increase in materials checked out over the last 5 years. Last year, we hit a high of 396,000 items after following a slight dip in 2015. In addition, we've seen a big increase in attendance at our library programs and events over the last 5 years. In 2016, we again hit a 5-year high with 24,000 people over the course of a year attending our events, our story times, and our signature events. And as you can tell, there was also a drop in attendance in 2015 and a spike in 2016. Some of the reasons for this spike in attendance include that we had a new manager for this department who was hired, who really understood our strong strategic plan focus. And I presented that plan to you in the past. But really hitting on that strategic plan and the focus for the library in this area. She's really worked on increasing our outreach, our community partnerships with several schools and other nonprofit organizations. And we've also added quite a few new programs in-house over the last couple of years. For example, we now have storytime parties, we have a Star Wars Reads Day, we have spring break week activities for the kids who are out of school, an additional day for our gingerbread house workshop that's proved to be very popular, and increased library tours for schools. As in our last strategic plan, our current plan has us continuing to focus on community partnerships. Our new plan also has us focusing our goals and resources towards early literacy, lifelong learning for all ages, and access to all types of library materials. Our new plan our new strategic priority that was added this last year is a focus on creating events, programs, and spaces for people to work together collaboratively in areas of technology, creation of new ideas, and artistic and literary creation. We will be meeting this new priority by growing our robotics classes for kids, building our annual Maker Fest event, advertising our new 3D printing services, and continuing to look for new ways to incorporate new technology into our programming for all ages. Moving on into the budget. This slide shows our budget broken down into major categories with a comparison of our current year budget against our proposed budget for next year. Our personnel line is showing an increase of $33,084 for fiscal year 17-18, which includes our stipend pay program and a slight change in insurance and benefits. Our maintenance line is down by approximately $23,000. And our capital line also shows a proposed decrease of approximately $35,000. Overall, our budget is a decrease of $25,723 over the current year, with our one-time expenses increased by $6,900 and our recurring expenses decreased by $32,000. So going into more detail, this just lays out the personnel lines. Stipend pay program, one-time expense of $33,564, and then there are some small payroll adjustments of $480. And then in the area of maintenance and operations, some of our major changes that I've outlined here include a $5,500 decrease in office supplies, about a $2,600 decrease in software maintenance, $1,200 decrease in HVAC maintenance. I think that's due to less service calls. We've got a lot of newer units now servicing our building in that area. A decrease in paper library subscriptions, such as magazines and newspapers, but this includes a transfer of a majority of these funds towards electronic subscriptions, which provides more money for downloadable ebooks. And then we show a $12,200 decrease in our light and power budget. Then the next section, capital expenses, there's a $35,230 decrease. There will be fewer replacements and updates to our computers for a decrease of $11,700, an increase of $4,820 in software for some licenses, and a decrease in our HVAC line since we will not be updating or replacing any of our HVAC units in the next budget year.
Dana, just 2 seconds.
Yes.
You may notice as we go through more light and power deductions, you may remember, what was that, a year ago? We renegotiated that per kilowatt hour that goes into effect in January. So Gilbert has calculated those savings into these budgets, so you'll notice that. Thanks,
thank you.
Dana.
Did the new ACs help also? Didn't
I'm
We
sure.
replace air conditioning? Okay.
Yes, and also, yes, the timers, the lights that we have on timers now, there's several things that have helped us over the years.
Okay.
So overall, no major building improvements or program increases are planned for next year. There are some areas that have been impacted by our budgetary constraints. As I've mentioned to council before, we continue to look at the footprint of our building, where we are currently, and how we use that space best to serve our community. The use of our pavilion as either a private patio or an enclosed space to create more quiet space or meeting space for collaborative use to meet a strategic plan priority and for family programming, I think would improve the overall experience of using the library. And I have brought that to you in the past, that idea. In addition, our carpet will need to be replaced very soon, as having 4,000 to 5,000 people walk over it weekly, and it's now 10 years old. It's beginning to create an eyesore, and it no longer looks clean, even though we do follow a pretty, I think, strict cleaning procedure throughout the year. And then lastly, our library's materials budget. It was decreased in 2014. And we've not seen any increases in that line in the last 3 years. So while the use of the library materials over the past 5 years has increased by 11%, our budget hasn't. So in order to continue to meet community needs for both physical and the downloadable materials, we will need to take steps to close this gap between use of materials and that flat or decreasing budget. That concludes my presentation. I wanted to thank you for your support of the library, and I'm here to answer any questions. Yes.
Yes, these areas that are impacted, basically, these are the things we're deferring to keep a flat budget. Library materials budget, carpet replacement, and the flexible use of space these are the ones that we're going to have to look at in future years, sooner or later.
Yes, that's
We're
correct.
just deferring them to make a flat budget for now.
Yes, that's correct. Yes,
Wanna
my
be clear on
capital.
That's all.
Yes, my capital line is very low. It's decreasing. So yes. Any others? All right. Thank you.
So Kobe, I'm going to do a disclaimer before you start talking about your budget.
Uh-oh.
I know.
I don't have PD money, I'm sorry.
Do what?
I don't have PD money, so
You don't have PD money. You want some of PD money,
I
don't
do want some
you?
PD money.
There's nothing about the golf course in this budget presentation. You might have noticed that. So, we put this together before we started talking about the golf. So we're working on a budget for golf. So that's the disclaimer. Go ahead.
You're going to make me start laughing, so. Mayor, Council, thank you. Please, at any time during this, if you have any questions, stop me and let me know. I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. I got to beat Cheryl on her presentation time, so.
I thought y'all were timing against Tanner.
Well, Tanner's faster than I've ever seen him. He went 9 minutes and 40 seconds. That's as quick as I've ever seen him at anything.
So is that JJ's goal now?
Yeah, he's not going to beat that. Y'all already know, I'm sorry. So.
Either don't start the timer yet or else.
That's true.
So just a quick overview, this is our structure as far as how many employees we have in both Parks and Recreation and the Community Center, and a very broad flow chart of how our operation works as far as my staffing goes. In our budget, we have, you see decreases in every one of our line items. Our personnel is down 68,000. Our maintenance operation is down 88. Our capital is down almost 100,000. Our total reoccurring budget is down 255,000. My one-time expenses are down 132, and the total budget is down 388,000. And this next slide, I'll get into what those details are. Personnel. We are going to go down to, we are decreasing one employee. So we're going from 39 to 38 employees. Our temporary employees increased a little bit, but our overtime decreased and our workman's comp charges decreased as well. In the maintenance and operations, we have an electricity decrease, mosquito spraying decrease. I want to let you know on that. That does not mean we are not spraying. We have just found that we're using our chemicals more wisely. We're not ordering until we have to. And so if we get to a point where we have to spray more often, then we will adjust other aisle items to make sure we have mosquito spray. And so that will still continue. It'll just be done as an as-needed basis and not that we're going to spend $10,000 with this. We'll buy the chemical as needed. Our capital is down, our other structures, and you'll see the major part of this is due to, as last year, we replaced some Z mowers, and so they're not in there, and that's why you'll see that capital. Each year, my capital goes up and down depending on replacement of my mowers. This kind of gives us just a brief summary. The personnel, like I said, was decreased. Our temporary payroll increased a little bit. That was our rec workers. You'll see when I start talking about the effects of losing that personnel, that is why that temporary payroll increased. We've decreased our overtime, and the botanical ag is still seen as what you see there as our mosquito spraying and different things to that nature. So, operations decreased light and power. Once again, Ms. Garrett explained that one. The recreational supplies have decreased, and then our mosquito spraying. The operational effects of these decreases, we switched from one full-time personnel that we used to run Riverside Stadium and the two Low and Ripperani ball fields to running that with part-time recreational workers. A lot of that is because when we went to the turf, we're not needed as much. You know, we still run 140 games out there, but getting that field ready is a lot faster. We don't have to have somebody working it all day with, you know, water in the dirt and getting, all we have to do is take the tarp off the mound and we're ready to go. You know, we our normal operations of mowing and lining the fields, we do that during the day. And so we were able to pull that guy off and put them in different areas. The effect of that as well is the bathroom cleaning. It was now dispersed when we lost that person. We moved two different personnels into one over to our youth sports complex. We picked up bathroom cleaning on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Fridays, with current personnel where we lost that one full time. Am I understanding where I'm going with that? Okay. And then our weekend crew, which is all these effects, went from 5 to 4. And so we have a crew that's there on the weekends that takes care of all our parks, making sure trashes are picked up, making sure that the restrooms are clean. And that went down from 5 to 4.
And Colby, you're doing most of that right now.
Yes, we've been doing that. We had an employee that was out for a long time with an injury medical problem, and so we made a lot of those operational changes. And we'll also, you know, we bought new mowers last year. We bought some 2 additional 11-foot mowers, and so, you know, we've seen our mowing times go from when I first started at 17 days per mowing cycle. Now we're hitting 11 or 12 days, and so we're able to adjust and we're able to move personnel based on that to make sure that we run lean, but we run effectively. 2018 projects, Ethelly Tracy Park improvement. We are looking at a 3-phase project with this phase 1 coming in this year's is adding a splash pad at that park. That is going to run between $450,000 and $500,000. If you'll remember, council was able to allowed us to set up a trust and agency fund, and we've received over $300,000 in donations. And we have one more out there that we're hoping we will hear something from the end of this month, maybe the first of next month, that will hopefully cover that entire cost and be able to build that facility in this next up and coming budget. No questions on that one?
Do you have anything budgeted in this budget for that? I mean, you just said you hope, but is the budgeted that I guess would be removed from the budget?
It's not in the general fund budget. If we don't get enough, this additional foundation that we've asked for, if we're unable to get that, we have plans to ask sales tax to help fund that as a part of a park project, which sales tax can do. So that's our plan when we take the budget to there. So you won't see any actual dollars in the general fund budget.
Okay.
Another project, I'm sorry, Ms. Scott, is there any other questions on that project?
Kobe?
Yes, sir.
On the reshaping of the river, reslope to riverbank, is that across from the golf course?
Yes, sir. It's across from the duck pond
Is
right
it
there.
across from Duck Pond?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir, where we've
Close
got
to
the
the
metal
golf course,
barricades
yeah.
right now.
Okay.
The duck pond repairs, that is to reslape the river bank to prevent erosion. Both those floods 2 years ago hit that area pretty hard. If you drive by the park, you'll see a metal barricades around, and we started getting some erosion that an old sidewalk had actually dropped. And so I barricaded that off, and that's what this project does is help fix that. It also, we have a sunken sidewalk at the duck pond, and that'll be to repair that as well.
But you're going to try to armor that bank, or what is the plan?
I may let Ken explain that. He brought the project up, or brought it's how to do it.
Bagged wall, Ken.
Well, what we talked about, and we met with a contractor who's a very established contractor, does a lot of that, is to basically bring some heavy PI material, a heavy clay, and just walk that material in and try to keep that bank natural. If we start putting structures, again, we'll have undermining like we have currently now.
Planting a vine and ivy that hold the soil or things of that nature?
The plan is to put some sod down and pin the sod down to anchor that until it gets a root system established.
That's on the cut side of a bank. It's going to be tough to deal with anyway. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's been the recommendation, and even when we did back after the 98 flood, we used that same methodology as far as putting in a solid soil, high PI material, and then armoring that ground with a good sod and pinning it. Same methodology.
Thank you, sir.
Very visible location.
One more question. Is there any undermining of that road?
And not at this time. Not that I've seen.
Because it looks extremely hazardous.
It's close.
Any other questions on that? Okay. We will continue the control post installation. Last year, we installed about 800 of the control posts, the black ones that come through with the metal. They've worked out great for us. When we do get one that's hit, we're repairing one instead of it pulling 5, 6, 7 of them out at one time. And so we'll continue that. That's going to be about a 7-year project overall, and we're in year 3 of that right now, so we'll be going in year 4. And that's a winter project for us, and really any more than that is difficult for my staff to do internally. That takes up quite a bit of time getting those through, and so I didn't feel like we needed to budget more than that, just because that's about what we can get done in a winter's project time period. Hopkins Park improvement project. We are looking at adding a half-mile jogging sidewalk around that park and lighting that trail. I know Ms. Garrett has some information on how that's going to be funded, but that's one of them that we're using the block grant program for. So.
And the lighting the trail, we may divert, depending on what happens with CDBG funding, divert that money to help with lighting on Houston Highway and some of those areas that qualify for CDBG money. So we're waiting to see. So that may have to defer that and use that money for lighting on Houston Highway. But the jogging sidewalk is in there.
Yes.
So.
Community center, the only line item that is up, the only area that is up is the personnel. I think we reassigned some of where my salary goes into, and then Jamie's salary as well. And so there's just a movement about the amount of time that she spends over there, and so that was reallocated to that fund. Everything else is down, and you see the same thing with the capital. That's just because there was some larger items that we purchased last year that we're not purchasing this year.
Chairman, we are not going to do anything about expanding the parking on the right side or the left side of the dome?
It's not in
Not
there.
yet.
No, ma'am. And part of that too was, when you look at the cost to do that versus how often you may need it, it doesn't happen very frequently that you need the additional cost. So it's just not one of those high priorities, Ms. Solis, in the budget.
I mean, we do allow parking out there when we have large events that we know. We consult with the renter, and if they need to use that area, that grassy area, we're able to do that at that area. And so we've been able to accommodate any renters that have needed additional space to use, whether that's a stock show or a Memorial Day bash or different other events.
Okay, I was just thinking of the bigger events.
Sure.
Okay.
Sports tourism, up to, this is the 1st of June's date, numbers. We had a tournament last weekend that's not in this dates, but we are in this number as far as hotel rooms. We're just over 1,200 hotel rooms so far. We did have, that's a little bit down from last year, our Monica Abbott tournament in March that is normally a 50, 55 team. It got rained out. It rained that entire weekend, and so that's where that number's down a little bit compared to what it last year, but I still think it's holding strong for what we spent. In 2018, we'll still be looking at the same amount of fast pitch and baseball tournaments. We will host the regional swim meet upcoming. We are also looking at, if you remember the Little League concerns about scoreboards, you'll see scoreboard repair and replacements in both those, two at the adult complex, fixing the entire group of scoreboards in the youth complex, and then the shade structure that was damaged in the storm will be replaced, and we'll start that around October. And so before next year's Little League season, those items will be in place, ready to go.
Colby, you didn't itemize the sports tourism. I mean, there's personnel in there too, right?
No, sir.
I'm sorry?
No, sir, there's no personnel in
There's
this.
not? Okay.
No, sir. In that item is where we have contracts with groups to come in and run tournaments. Those are awards packages that we're able to buy to get teams to come down. And so all those things are in that. I can produce a line item one if you'd like to see that.
No,
Okay.
that's fine.
And that's my presentation.
Did you beat Cheryl? Did you beat Cheryl?
Yeah, mine was 7 minutes. There, I got it.
If y'all haven't picked up, that's a standing joke among the department heads, so. Thank you, Colby.
Yep, thank you.
So Joel, Navisad's doing the one for the CVB this year. So I think this is Joel's first budget presentation.
It is my first presentation period, so thank you all for having me this evening. Good evening, council, mayor. Again, my name is Joel Nosad. I am the Convention and Visitors Bureau Manager. Been there since October. So I'm going to briefly go over our budget for 2018. Just a, which one did I push? Speaking of first time presenting.
We won't time you tonight.
Okay.
Joel, we'll give you a pass.
And just a quick little background on the CVB. As many of y'all may know, the CVB is funded 100% by hotel occupancy tax funds, funds that which by state law can only be used to spent to increase overnight stays to Victoria, so not for general expenses like streets or whatnot. We are the only organization in Victoria that promotes really everybody that we see could bring people into town to stay overnight. That not includes just events, but attractions, and some of our long-running events, like the Historic Home Store, to our newer events like Memorial Weekend Bash and events like that we help market that have been around for a few years now and have done a great job. We've ourselves are a relatively new department, have only been here for 6 years, and we do operate a visitor center in 700 North Main that we do serve about 3,000 people per year. We basically it's right there. We serve as a travel destination. We position Victoria as a travel destination to a diverse audience. We really focus on the regional market, a lot of drive markets, overnight markets like Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio. But we do we do kind of come in a three-prong approach, whether it's sports, meeting, or leisure travel. And we do a great job also of enhancing the visitors while they're here. And I'll touch on that a little bit more on my staff and what each of us do within our roles. And we help our local travel partners be more successful. We host quarterly tours and partnership meetings where we invite the hotels, the attractions. We'll bring in people who may be holding an event, like some of our great softball tournament organizers. The Texas Mile came and did a presentation at one of our partnership meetings. And we'll do presentations on things that people that we work with, like TripAdvisor, in ways that they can enhance their presence online. And then be the best destination management organization we can be. Our staff is a relatively small staff. We have 4 full-time positions. Myself, the manager. We have Nancy Britton, who is fantastic in her role as our marketing manager and a great advertising background. Bridget Postel was recently promoted from our principal clerk to our guest services specialist. So she is the one who really makes people feel welcome in the visitor center and enhances their experience when they get here. And we didn't create a new position. We took an existing position and rebranded it. And we're in the process of looking for a person to fill that group sales and services. We've never had a dedicated sales person to serve as a liaison between some of our great facilities here in town, like the Victoria College Conference Center, and even our own facilities like the Community Center. In 2017, the budget was reduced to reflect the decrease in hot funds that we collected. And our budget was reduced a little more, and I'll touch on that in a second, just from some personnel things. But we were really looking at pretty much a flat budget for this next fiscal year. As you see, some personnel variance there, about a negative 8,000, and that had to do with some changing positions, some vacancies that were there for a while, and then just a slight discrepancy there in the maintenance and operations from a purchase and handling fee line item, just a reflection of what we spent last year. And some of our major areas where we spend our funds, advertising and marketing does have a large lion's share of what we do. That includes all kind of mediums, whether you're talking print, television, a lot of digital, online, social media, sports marketing. We work with the tournament organizers as well, especially providing lodging for their officials. A lot of these officials who are, do these great tournaments that we have to come from out of town, especially places like Houston. So we help underwrite some of those hotel stays. Group meetings and sales and services, whether it's sometimes when you're trying to bring an event in town, sometimes you have to provide some services for them. So, whether it's busing or, shuttle services or underwriting some costs for them. And then public relations expenses for our quarterly tours and partnership meetings. Anytime that, packages for groups that are coming in town, things like that. A big part of what we do also is Boot Fest. Boot Fest is one of Victoria, if not Victoria's largest free festival. In the past, it was funded with $100,000 from hot funds, but beginning in 2017, it will be funded with funds from the reserve, which stands at about a little over $265,000. We are going to look at cutting costs as much as we can to be conservative with our Boot Fest budget, and then at the same time, new ways to increase revenues. But Boot Fest is a great festival. It's free, but so looking at what our expenses are and what our reserve P, there will be a little bit of a slight downfall there, slight change there. Boot Fest 2017, the dates are October 6th and 7th. As before, we're going to have free concerts. Tentatively looking at a 5K, car and truck show, kids corral, college game watch, lots of great vendors and food trucks and arts and crafts vendors. So, we're heavily in the planning. We're almost going to be about 90 days out here pretty soon. So we're heavy in the planning for Boot Fest 2017. And any questions?
Joel, I have one. You said you
Yes,
have a
sir.
quarterly meeting.
Yes, sir.
Is that mostly just the hotel motel group?
It is the hotel motel groups. It's not technically a public meeting, but we do invite
Okay.
hotel motel groups, attractions, for instance, Outlaw Pass, or, so it's either commercial attractions or nonprofit attractions like the Children's Discovery Museum or the Texas Zoo. So it's primarily hotels or B&B providers or anybody vested in the travel industry. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, events managers as well. Yes, anybody who's an event organizer. We have a running list of tourism partners that we extend the invitation to.
Very good. Thank you.
I think this
Thank
is
you.
our 7th Boot Fest.
This will be our 7th. Yes, ma'am.
It's hard to believe.
Very good.
It's hard to believe. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Okay, John's getting up next. Go ahead, but I'm gonna put JJ on notice. I think you're gonna get yours done tonight, JJ. So pay attention back there.
Good evening. what in the world am I doing up here, right? Still spending just a little bit of my time in development
We
services.
say the same thing.
Never get out of that department, will you?
Yeah, well,
That's okay.
I'm spending so little time at City Hall that a couple weeks ago, Clarissa had to announce me before I entered Charmel's office for a meeting. So something is not right. I'm going to refresh your memory about development services. The department continues to employ 26 full-time positions in 4 divisions: planning services, the development center, code enforcement, and GIS. And I want to talk about trends and what's been happening over the last couple of years. The first category, code enforcement cases, really is not dependent upon economic situations. They are usually pretty steady no matter what's happening. Our numbers were way down in 2016 only because we were short one code enforcement officer for about 9 months due to military leave. You'll see that year to date, which is the first 8 months of this year, in 2017, we're already up to that, almost up to that number. So we'll be back up to that 2015 level by the end of this fiscal year in code enforcement. But where you see the trends going downward is with our next 2 categories of building inspections and the number of new homes permitted. 2014 was a big year. And since that time, we're trending very much in a downward direction in both the total number of inspections and in the number of homes permitted. In the first 8 months of the year, have been very slow. We may be up to about 24 today in terms of new homes permitted, but that's the lowest number I can remember, and I've been doing this for a while. Lots platted is not a real steady indicator. It just depends on when those plats get through the process, and but it is definitely low. And then again, permitting activity, 22 million total permitted value permitted so far this year is pretty weak. Let's talk about the budget. Breaking down into several categories, the personnel budget is going up a little bit, $31,000. The maintenance operations will see about $106,000 reduction. Slight reduction in capital. There's never very much capital in this particular budget. For a total decrease of $62,000, about $29,000 in one-time expenses, and kind of balances all out with a $105,000 reduction in recurring expenses department-wide. To explain those changes, primarily the increase in personnel is the one-time stipend program. We have a couple of career ladder promotions planned for next fiscal year. Some other net adjustments for about a $2,000 net increase in recurring payroll expense. The reduction in maintenance and operations, Darrell hit on this earlier, was primarily the result of moving our contract labor account, which is weedy lot mowing, debris removal, tree trimming, those types of activities, and our demolition account from the Code Enforcement Fund Center to the Environmental Services Fund. Again, no computer replacements for next year, so a reduction in capital. And these are challenges that we see going forward. Biggest one in my mind is inadequate funding for code enforcement contract labor. Even though we're moving that, we still need it. Anytime that we have situations where code enforcement cannot get voluntary compliance in a timely manner from folks that are in violation, we get into situations where we have to contract that work out. Having reduced those accounts over time has resulted in the need to prioritize and triage complaints, not necessarily being able to get to them right away. When you delay, when you have that need, you delay the abatement of nuisances. When you delay the abatement of nuisances, you get upset neighbors and frustrated citizens. And to explain that a little bit, I'll tell you, how we've been handling this, and this was started last year, was to take that budget, that contract labor total of about $110,000. This is internal processing, how the department functions. Divided by 52 weeks, and we basically give code enforcement an allowance. You have a couple $1,000s to spend this week on contracting. If they spend a couple $1,000s on Monday or Tuesday, any of those other contracts that need to be done the rest of that week are going to wait until the following week. It's either that, or you let them spend all the money as quickly as the issues come up, and I guarantee they're out of money in May or June, in the middle of the growing season, when we have weedy lots that we can't, so numerous we can't count. So we've got to parse that money out carefully. Now, what that does, it motivates our code enforcement officers to focus more strongly on getting compliance and staying after people and calling back and re-inspecting and making more of an effort to get folks who are out of compliance to come into compliance. And we have some success at that, but you're never going to have 100%. It just doesn't happen. We're working with the court to determine ways that we can move more of that activity over toward a municipal court process. But I mean, if you've dealt with any court process, whether it's municipal court or any other, it's slow. It's a slow process. I mean, it just is by nature. It takes time to get through legal proceedings, and it's not the most efficient way to go about it. So we end up having to contract a lot of that work out. We bill the property owner. Sometimes we get paid, sometimes we don't, and then we end up filing liens. So there's an issue there. It's not going to go away. If we have a really dry year, in which we don't want to have a drought, but those calls go down, and we may make it through a year without running out. But it's tough.
John,
Yes, sir.
you said sometimes we get paid, and I'm aware that sometimes it's attached as a tax lien.
A lien.
How much in each category? What percent are we actually getting paid?
Ooh, Gilbert, do you
Just
have a
roughly.
ballpark?
Really, on those tax liens, we don't see any kind of results until they actually sell the property.
No, yeah, not those. What's the percent between the two? How many people actually pay you as opposed to going
God.
to tax lien?
I couldn't tell you that right now.
Okay,
I mean,
'cause
it's low.
Okay, so a
Yeah,
small
I could say
percentage
it's
actually
low.
Yes.
reimburse for
Yes,
the
it's low.
mowing. And then that was going to my next question, which you started to answer, was on the tax liens. Yeah, that could come years later, and it funnels back through another fund probably. So you can't really
No.
recoup it. Okay,
No.
okay.
We have an expense budget, so it doesn't go back into development
Correct.
services if we recoup any of it.
Our other issue I see in code, again, it's in code enforcement, and it's demolition. This current fiscal year, for the last several, we've been cutting back. This year, we didn't budget any money in demolition. A week or two ago, we came to you with a budget amendment because we had a couple that just had to get done.
Yeah.
And we're proposing a little bit of money in next year's budget. It'll probably be spent by November, because the Building Standards Commission will meet in October. And I can pretty much guarantee one or two demolitions is going to eat up that $10,000. So it's something we're going to have to work on going forward. And if you have any questions, I'll do my best.
Is the mowing one particular contractor, or how do y'all choose or
No,
bid?
sir, we have a list of a number of contractors that we get prices from.
Okay.
John?
Yes, sir.
When we first did our ordinance about blowing grass clippings into the street, one of the things that was done at that time is we met with all the mowing contractors, individuals and small companies that go around mowing yards, and told them about the ordinance and asked them to help out. I've gotten a complaint from a citizens, and another one that said, yeah, me too, happened to be standing close, but don't know if that was a true complaint or not, but it was a yeah, me too, that agreed and said that it seems to be on an increase of recent time. That could be just because it's a wet year, there's being more mowing. Do we periodically talk to the contractors that do a lot of the mowing? I can drive down the street, and if I see them mowing, they'll be blowing it right into the streets.
I don't know that we've done recently any direct contacts to those contractors specifically. I know that we can fairly regularly are running articles or in the advocate column that the PIO office puts together. They cover that probably multiple times a year. But as far as directly reaching out to contractors, I don't know that we've done that in a while. It's something we could look at.
And I didn't know if that was effective or not.
What's effective is calling it in and a code enforcement officer visiting with the contractor when he's still out there.
Many times it's a duration of 10 or 15 minutes and he's out of
Oh,
there.
I understand.
Well, and then too, we have a good probably handle on our large contractors, but a
Sure.
lot of just small businesses, what would be considered mom and pop, we don't have a way of contacting those folks.
Right.
So, you know, they
And I
don't
didn't
have
know
to
if
have a
that
license
method was
with us
effective.
to,
We're asking people not to blow the grass clippings into the gutter because it goes into the waterways.
Sure.
We all drink the water. Downstream, they drink the water. And it's an environmentally good thing for us to do. We would hope that people would care about the place they live in and would voluntarily comply. Some do, some don't.
and you know, even though if we might not can get a code enforcement officer out there, if you can tell us the name of the company, if it's, you know, on the equipment, we don't mind reaching out and calling that individual and just say, hey, we got a report today, just a reminder, you know, please don't blow your grass clippings out in the street.
Well,
We'll
I
be
know our
glad to reach
people are
out.
fast, but, 10 or 15 minutes from downtown
No,
out to
so,
a site where a
yeah.
guy is actually doing that
Mm-hmm.
is not what you'd reasonably expect. But perhaps if I can get the name off the side of a truck and ask citizens to do the same, maybe we could make a small impact.
And we do stop. I know I've stopped before. I know Daryl has stopped before. I mean, staff stops without calling code enforcement just to remind them that you're not supposed to be doing that, so.
Sometimes that doesn't go too
And
well.
many of them do a good job. It's just there's always a few.
I know
some-
me.
the police chief's cringing back there when I say I
Yeah.
stop. But it's been,
Yep.
it's all in how you approach. Friendly reminder, so.
Well, it's not just the mowing companies, it's individuals as well that I see doing it. I mean, just
I'm sure
to
we've
make it
all seen
clear
it,
that,
haven't you,
that
Sam?
this isn't just an ordinance for mowing companies, this is an ordinance for the city of Victoria.
I think they use a blower just to dissipate it, not to make it look like it's all.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So, Chief,
You through for another year.
Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. All that clicking you hear in the background is those stopwatches starting off. But again, it's a real honor and a privilege to be able to present to you the proposed 2018 Police Department budget. Turn around my little deal, here we go. What I'll do to talk about is just a real quick department overview. We'll talk about staffing and service delivery and some of the workload. Then I'll talk about the proposed budget that's before you. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of the budget limitations and challenges that we face with this budget in future. Start off with our staffing. Right now, a licensed certified police officer personnel, we're at 121. Non-licensed personnel, total of 38 for total authorized strength of 159. As we sit here today, we have 7 entry-level police officer position openings. And we average, at least the last couple of years, about 6. Our average vacancy rate's around 6. So we're fairly consistent right now with that. Civilian personnel, tad high, we're at 4 right now. But all of these positions, we have ongoing recruitment and hiring efforts going on right now. I want to talk a little bit about our calls for service. There's a couple benchmarks that are real important when you talk about police response and police services. First is overall calls for service. And as you can see, in 2015, we were at about 95,000. In 2016, that dipped a little bit. In 2017, as of May 31st, we were at 41,000. And when we analyze and project that out for the rest of the year, we anticipate coming in somewhere around 98,000 500 calls for service. One of the benchmarks that's important in any police, municipal police organization is your response time to emergency 911 calls. And what we've talked about there is we have an emergency call, the citizen picks up the phone, dials 911, and who answers it on the other end, processes the information, and sends a unit to an emergency call. 2015, we were at, on average, 5 minutes and 88. And then we went a little bit higher to 7:59 in 2016. And as of May 31st of this year, we're trending right around 7 minutes. Those are still good numbers, but they can be improved upon in terms of what I'd like to kind of see in terms of our response to priority one calls. But as a benchmark, those are still pretty good numbers in terms of being able to respond.
So JJ, just to clarify, your lead time on that, does it start from the minute the call is received or the minute it's dispatched?
Now, we capture from the total lead time, but response time is calculated from the moment that the call taker gets enough information and pushes the button, sends it to the dispatcher to dispatch the unit. And then that time it takes for the unit to get the call and respond to it and arrive.
Thank you.
So those are actual calls where you go on site or follow up?
Yes.
They're not, that's like 10 an hour, a little over 10 an hour, I notice, every day. Wow.
Now I'll talk a little bit about the budget. Our personnel line item from the proposed year 2017-2018, 11.5. It's going to be down about 15,000, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. Our maintenance and operations going up a little bit from 2.3 to 2.395, difference of about 91,000. Capital improvements are going up. 2017-2018 is 103 from 78 from last year, difference of 24,000. Our total reoccurring expenses are going to go from 13.983 to 14.084, and that's a variance of increase of about 100,000 in total reoccurring. We have a one-time expenses in 16-17 were 62, and then we're showing an increase of 16,975. We're going to go to 79,558 for 17 and 18. For total budget, we'll go from 14,046, 14,164, with an increase of 117,580. And now we'll kind of dig a little bit further into each of those. The personnel line item down 15.3. Primarily, what we're seeing is the step plan is included in this for certified sworn employees to the rank of officers. It's an increase of 197,000. Then we had some baseline payroll adjustments that went down, and this was due largely to employee retirements. We look at the employees that have left versus employees that we've brought on, and the budget reflects replacements paid at the entry level versus an encumbered level or a senior level. In maintenance and operations, we saw an increase of 91,000 over the previous year. This is driven largely by an increase in software maintenance to include a new body camera replacement program in software maintenance and our ticket writers. We also have a 60,000 increase in vehicle replacement charges. We're replacing 7 vehicles proposed in this budget and 1 additional, a total of 8. And then we saw 11,000 decrease in other M&O expenses. In the capital line, increase of 24,000. This increase is mainly due to machinery and equipment expense account, and 30,000 of capital requests of 17 that were deferred until 18. So the net increase to recurring expenses was 100,000. A little bit more about one-time expenses. Last year we were at 62.5. FY 17-18 we're at 79.5, a variance of an increase of 16. Our one-time expenses include the police department employee stipend program at $52,000, and then our 911 dispatch employees at $27,000 for a total of $79,558. I'd like to kind of get into some of the challenges that we face as an organization related to the budget. And I want to begin by saying that this council has always demonstrated very strong support for public safety. We are faced with some challenges related to staffing. I'd like to talk about those just real quick. Some of the staffing challenges that we're seeing are affecting some of the service delivery. Most notably, as you noticed, that we had a little bit higher response time, and then some decreases in some of our proactivity, and we'll kind of get into some of that, what I'm talking about, and then some of our case investigation and triage challenges. We're currently in a little bit of a stalled 5-year growth plan to add the 10 officers. Back in 2013, ICMA, the staffing, which was an empirical data survey staffing document that talked about workload, current workload, and then projected out in future years, and then made some recommendations. At that time, they recommended that our authorized strength should be about 126 in 2013, and we're at 121. The data is now about 5 years old, and it doesn't increase. It kind of talked about what we expected in workload increase, but those projections are even higher now.
Excuse me, refresh my memory, because I see that, but did we authorize more staff? I thought that we had authorized more officers.
You did. The council approved a 5-year plan to add 2 officers per year to get to the 10 that were needed back, that were identified in 2013 plan.
Okay.
But we haven't done it because of budget shortfalls. We did 2 in 2014. We did not add any in 2015. I think that was more along the lines, you had a high vacancy rate that year.
Yes.
And then we added 4 in 2016. So we've added 6 of the 10, but none this year.
And the 6 that we added, we reduced 1 due to that position being reorganized to take over communication, so net increase of 5.
Got 6 warm bodies, though.
6 warm bodies.
How you deploy them.
I didn't write warm bodies up there, but you're right.
Lack of,
You got six people.
is that lack of adequate applicants, or?
I would say that we continue to fight the fight. We are fighting for the very top cream of the crop applicants. We have not lowered our standards and will not. So we're fighting for that very high applicant. So that fight is an ongoing battle. You know, we're doing the same things that larger agencies are doing. We've seen some success. At the same time, it seems like every few months we get a new competitor out there that's dangling a lot of incentives, and so we have to fight it again. But we do have, as we stand right now, I think there's 45 individuals in the testing process to be supported to go to the police academy. That's a good number. So that tells me that there's still an interest out there. We're still able to draw in some applicants. Whether or not they're the applicants that we want to see at the very end remains to be seen. And we do see some challenges. That number will dwindle down drastically, but that's a good number to start out with.
And sending them to the academy has worked to help augment our vacancy list. I think, Chief,
It has.
I don't know, if y'all understand what we do there. You want to explain that briefly, what we're doing with the academy?
I would definitely say that's a success that we've had over the last couple of years. And what we've done is we look at our recruitment, our hiring efforts a couple different ways. We're always looking for experienced officers to bring into the organization. So we always kind of are out there recruiting for senior officers to come to our department. But the homegrown, the ones that we use for the police academy, are officers that we are able to hire, and in many cases, in some academy classes, we can hire them up to 2 or 3 months before the actual academy start date. And we have what's called a pre-academy training program where we have them in-house and we prepare them for the academy. And then we have seen that they're much more successful both in the academy and once they graduate from the academy, entering the FTO program, which is our Field Training Officer program. Sometimes due to timing, we're not able to get the hiring done before that academy starts, depending on which academy we're going with. The Victoria College has, in my opinion, has a very, very good academy training program. And so what we try to do is they have 2 academy classes per year, one in January, one in August. So depending on the cycle, we may end up, currently we have a set of officers, I believe 5 officers that we've hired that just graduated. So we're bringing them into the organization and we're using that same pre-academy training program, but more like a post-academy training program before they go out in the field. So we are using the Victoria College Police Academy. They have, in my opinion, they have produced very good quality applicants that have come on to work here. So I think it needs to continue to be a resource for us to use, but it's not just the only one we have. Did that answer your question for the most part?
Yes, I do.
Thank you so much.
And I kind of wanted, and I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but I kind of want to just show you what we've been doing in terms of the fact that we say, well, we're kind of lagging behind. We're just in this stalled hiring again, I believe, based on the workload, that our officers are doing a very, very good job given the resources that we have, and they will continue to do that. We took a look at some of the models that were out there in the industry that target staffing. And so these are just a couple of, and believe me, these are, each one of them, we could take, one whole council meeting to go through them. So I'm going to just kind of hit the highlights of what they are, and then we can kind of talk about them at some later point in time, should we need to. But we looked at internal staffing using these 3 different models in the past 5 years of workload data. And the first one is the International Association of Chiefs of Police. It's kind of an original it's an original model. And what this one does is it kind of uses a methodology that you have to take a look at a third call for service, a third preventative or proactive, and then a third looking at administrative time. So it breaks up the data points in those 3 areas. It takes a look at workload, and then from that you can extrapolate a number of what you need. And that one, if you use that model and you plug in, our data, we're at about 156 is what they say that a community our size is as busy as we are would typically need. Now, when you use the IACP model, using the ICMA metrics, that number goes down to 143 officers that we would need now based on workload. The difference there is they're looking at a 40% call for service capability and 60% for proactive and administrative time. If you look at the next one, the Friesmeier method using ICMA metrics, which is their data, that comes in at 144. And if you use the allocation model for police patrol, which is a limit product, using the ICMA metrics again, because that was data that was available to us, we're at 146. That's officers that projected that we would need. The average of those models is 147 and the median is 145. Clearly, it shows that we're lagging a little behind in terms of total number of officers that are needed to police, given the models of proactivity and administrative time. And so the way I like to explain it is probably where the difference is, instead of 40% proactive time, that is 40% of the time where our officers are out trying to problem solve and dealing with quality of life issues, neighborhood improvement issues. They're going from call to call to call. So their productivity is probably more along the lines of 28, 27% versus the 40% model. Any questions about some of that? All right. kind of what we're doing to bridge it. We continue to focus on the core service of the police department. And again, the core service of a police organization is two things. I mean, the absolute core service are that you pick up the phone, you dial 911, you get somebody on the other end that handles your emergency. And the other is you get a patrol officer that responds to your emergency. So those are our core services. We have a lot of other services that are very important, but we will always focus in on ensuring that those core services are staffed. We obviously looking at a lot of technology and we've done that over the last few years. Again, council's been very supportive in our efforts to gain a lot of technology that's helped leverage that and has helped spread our resources out. So that's something that we've done, we'll continue to do, and we're always looking at ways to work smarter, not harder. We'll carefully consider the sensible grant opportunities, and what we're meaning there is, a lot of those grants sound good until you look at the matching requirements, and then, so some are and some maybe not so much. We really have taken a harder look. I've always felt that we've been, very that it was important for us to look at efficiencies, but I think over the last year, almost two, we've really stepped up looking at processes and looking at what we're doing internally that could, gain some efficiency, total lead time in a lot of carries. And so right now we're finishing the process of a 911 call for service Lean Six Sigma project. And then also looking at our case development and our triage process in case investigations and detectives. We continue to be mindful and watch our patrol staffing. And we do have to use overtime to bridge some of those gaps that we do have, that we do see sometimes. It's inevitable that we're going to have to do that. So looking at some of the impact, again, when you focus on core services, there are a few trade-offs. They're acceptable trade-offs, but they do have, some negativity associated with them. And that is, my biggest one is I would really get to a point where our officers are out of the car more. They're in the communities that they serve. They're not going to call. And that's right now kind of what we're getting in many instances. I'm a strong, community policing proponent, and I believe that the best way for us to solve problems is to be out with the community. So there's a little bit of a trade-off there. We're not able to do as much of that as I would like to see. And quite frankly, what they'd like to see, I mean, they're problem solvers, and they'd like to solve some of the problems, but sometimes they realize that they're just limited in the time it takes to do that. Sometimes we kind of operate at the bottom end of the staffing level. We have a minimum staffing level. It's this. And for obvious reasons, I won't talk about what those are specifically, but we sometimes find ourselves, fighting to stay at that minimum staffing level because of time off, required training, and the like. We are seeing, as you noticed, some increase in priority 1 emergency calls for service response time. And then this is having a negative effect on some of the case investigations. Some of our investigators are handling large caseloads, and they're doing a very good job with that. But at the same time, we're working very hard on a process to properly triage and make sure we're following up on the cases whenever we can. And then some of the other results is just an increased use of overtime to meet service demands across the board. Any questions about the staffing challenge? I think that's the greatest, probably number one that the police department would have. But again, I think that we're going in the right direction. Just we are in a position where we need to continue to keep moving forward.
JJ, before you move on, I'd like for you to go back and explain a little bit, because I know I get calls on it, and I suspect some of the council members get called on when we're having to triage some of those investigative cases where there's not evidence to pursue, and how we're handling those.
Well, what we do now is we take a look at the cases that are coming in, and we take a look at what's the viability that this case is going to end in a successful resolution in terms of clearance. That be an arrest, cleared exceptionally, or just, are we able to kind of, or is it one of those cases that's going to require more time and effort, or is it one of those cases that's not, likelihood is not going to be solved? I'll give you an example, and I believe that crime is personal. Crime is very personal to people that have it. If you're the victim of a crime, it's important, and I'm sensitive to that. You know, we had a gentleman that had a lawnmower stolen out of an open garage. And that was, and rightfully so, that was the most important thing to that gentleman possible. But the likelihood of getting that lawnmower back was pretty limited. He didn't have any additional information. It was bought a number of years ago. But being able to explain that that's not a case that we're probably going to spend a lot of time and effort on sometimes doesn't sit well, and I understand. But at the same time, we have to take, a process, a triage process, and looking at each one of those cases as they come in. What's the likelihood of our success in terms of being able to put manpower on it and investigate it? And even if we do decide that, some of our investigators are carrying a number of those types of cases. So they're working on, 20, 30 cases a week, just, that are good workable cases. But sometimes, we are in a position due to the fact that we just have so many coming in, and during that triage process, we'll have to put some off.
And I think y'all's effort recently has been to try to explain that to the victim and make sure they understand what's going on. And then explain to them too, if something pops up, whether they learn something that may help you solve it, or if something pops up, you work the case. But it's
Yes.
that, so you may hear that occasionally. They're not working my case, but that's usually what's going on.
And I'll tell you that that's just from from a management of a certain number of cases. So that's coming from, the top. But that's not what the detectives want to do. I'll tell you that they take their job very seriously, very proud of the job they do, and they'll take on as many cases as you give them. But at the same time, we have to understand that there's a trade-off for that, and getting that done is going to be difficult at times. I think given that, I don't want to leave it on a bad note. I think given that, they do an exceptional job of forging forward and grabbing cases and taking them to resolution.
They do a great job. And I think that, I just want to make sure if you start to hear some of that in the community, you'll at least know what we're doing, so.
But you're not advocating that you shouldn't report that even though you think that it's not going to be solvable, right? It's always been your opinion. You still want to know that the crime occurred so you can see patterns and put cases together that might be related.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I've talked about that, and that is very important that they call us, and I don't want to discourage people from calling us to report incidents because we're going to take the information. So it's really important that we continue to get that data. And the reason why is because, and I'll give you an example, if we had a recent burglary, we actually, were able to make an arrest with a couple of suspects, but we cleared numerous other cases that they were involved in, and it was only due to the fact that the prior victims had reported the crimes. They may not have had a lot of information at the time that led to an arrest, but we were able to go back and open those cases again and charge them. Thank you. And this is one that you've heard me talk about, so I'm going to kind of bring it up again because I think it needs to at least be brought up. We're actually making some progress in this one, but we sit in a position where we need we're in desperate need of having a new police facility. We were built in 1965 for a grand total of 50 employees, and we're about 100 and over that now. And if it's a 24/7 building, I really worry sometimes that James's folks are going to fall through my ceiling in my department sometimes when they're up there. When they're dealing with the infrastructure needs, they do a great job with that. But I'm gonna look up and James is gonna fall on my desk one of these days, I'm pretty sure. And when I say it's no longer meeting the needs of the department and the community, what I mean by that is from an efficiency deployment standpoint. We're situated where we are, but I mean it's a little bit of a challenge to continue to respond to some of the areas of the city where we are. I think we could do that a lot more efficiently if we were located in a different location. And then the good news is I think we're in just about the final stages of selecting a final architectural firm to do a spatial needs assessment. We started that a while back, and we're right at the end of it. So council last year allowed the money to go forward for that. And so I'm happy to report that I think we're at the end of that. And then we expect that study to be completed by the fall of 2017 So that's certainly good news.
I'm just thinking about the fact that you're centrally located. We've got 6 fire stations. And I think we've kind of talked about this a little bit before. So is that one of the things this study's looking at?
Did you say 6 or 16?
6.
So,
And by the way, Tanner has beat you.
We didn't slip any in that you didn't. I guess it's partially, is this study looking at that as to whether you need multiple locations and also looking at whether some of those locations could be in shared spaces with the fire department and so forth?
they've asked, that's part of the question process. It's not something that we're necessarily pushing, multiple locations. But we certainly think that there could be a single location for sure that could house at least the vast majority of police and police resources and then fire administrative resources. I'd like to see that more centrally located. Notice we obviously have a lot of time to go, but having a presence in this part of town, the south part of town is very good. We have a little bit of a presence in the north part of town, which is good, but being able to be more centrally located, especially, a lot of the work and demand are north and east now, and it continues to move in that direction. And we're still on the south side of things, still trying to deliver those services to the north. Being more centrally located, we can move our resources both directions a little bit more efficiently.
You do have kind of a substation in the new fire stations already, so that there's an
Yes.
office available for any zone officer that's out in that area.
Yes.
I'm just thinking about response times and how the fire department is able to cut those back by their multiple locations.
Yeah.
I know they're
I'm all
different
for the
departments.
proposal of putting police officers in fire departments.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm using that.
I
Well,
understand.
one of the things you do though, and I don't, it's been a while, but you deploy your zone officers and they're working in their zone during that time. When they leave downtown, they go to their zone.
Correct.
And that's where the fire station, if they don't want to come back down here, they can stop at one of the fire stations and use that office.
That's very helpful, so they don't have to come all the way back, because sometimes they have to. If they make an arrest and they got to transport, they're going to have to come back. But you're right, if they can stay in their area, we really try to promote that as much as possible.
Based on the numbers and information, though, they're probably not at those fire stations too much because of the number of calls. And I just want to say that your presentation is well taken. I understand your frustrations, and it's, for a lot of years now. I guess since I've been on council, we've moved one fire station and built 2 or 3, not to pick on, but it's public safety. You guys, we look at you the same, although you're very different. But I had a conversation Friday with a gentleman for over an hour. And one of the topics that dominated the hour long was a case with you guys, and you all were able to get equipment back. It was interesting how he couldn't, it was somewhat humorous. It was a good call, but about certain people you can't get on the phone at PD. And I said, well, they're working, they're out looking for your stuff. But that ended good. Y'all got a lot of equipment back for him. But I can certainly see how it can get frustrating. And this is not something that's occurred overnight. It's occurred, council probably would agree, over the last number of years, so.
Oh, yeah, long time.
Well, as an observation, I'd like to also point out that when it comes to professionalism of the police and the fire, we just can't call up labor ready to help reduce our overtime.
True.
We're just not gonna do that, and that you can operate under these conditions at all, very commendable of you, sir.
Thank you.
They do a great job, and just to reiterate what JJ said, he has not lowered his standards to hire people, and I think that is critical. So, because you could, and just get, anyone out there that semi-qualifies.
Will you continue with your zone meetings this next year?
We're going to try something a little different. We're going to do them, but we're going to try to do one larger one and then have separate breakout sessions depending on the zone that you're in, but try to do one collective gathering. They don't want me to call it a town hall, but more like a open house of sorts where we try to bring everyone together for one night, but then split it up to where areas of interest or zones of interest can be discussed more at length.
The two officers that made the wonderful videos, the YouTube videos, they're still at it, aren't they?
Well, one of them is still here doing that, so we haven't had as many.
Chris Guerra and
But we always continue to look at social media as a very positive tool for us, and it'll continue to be important for us.
as an observation, a gentleman that lost his lawnmower because his garage was open. If he'd listened to Chris Guerra, that wouldn't have happened, would it?
Well, yes, that's true, and I'm sure that gentleman who called me about that will be calling me again now that I brought it up in front of you. Other questions?
One more we can do tonight. Takes about 15 minutes, or we can stop, and that would be 2 presentations tomorrow night, Public Works and Gilbert. It's your pleasure.
How long? Gilbert's gonna need 3-4 hours, isn't he?
Gilbert's tomorrow night.
No, I know, I'm,
30 minutes, so it might be 31.
Gilbert will probably take an hour, hour and a half.
45 minutes.
Hour and a half.
no, I'm serious.
No.
2 hours tonight, another hour and a half tomorrow.
Yes. So it's a matter, do you want to do Public Works
Council-
and finish up in 15 minutes, or do you want to do both of them tomorrow night?
What do y'all wanna do?
Both of them tomorrow. I'd rather
For
do
tomorrow.
Okay, that's good.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night.
Is that okay, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of information tonight already
Yes,
in
it
this
is.
2 hours.
We've
We
been sitting.
appreciate it. Very good presentation.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.